Here's a strange cruelty in the architecture of selfhood. The person you believe yourself to be, the one you've carefully assembled through years of choices, approvals, masks worn and discarded, is not who you are. Carl Jung called this the persona, a mask society expects you to wear, a segment of the collective psyche, not who you actually are. But here's the paradox. To reach what Jung termed the self, the totality of who you actually are, you must first descend into everything you've spent your life rejecting, the parts of you that disgust you, the impulses you've buried, what he called the shadow. And Friedrich Nietzsche, writing through his prophet Zarathustra, said something even more unsettling. Man is something that must be overcome, not rejection, but transcendence. The river is filthy, he claimed. To become the ocean, the Übermensch, you must learn to despise what you currently are with honesty, not hatred. This is the journey of individuation, and it begins in the place you've been running from. Let's begin with what the shadow actually is, because it's not what most people think. The shadow isn't just your dark side. Jung defined it precisely. The shadow is everything in you that could be integrated into consciousness, but isn't. It's the sum of all the qualities, impulses, and potentials you've exiled because they didn't fit the person you decided to be. Here's the twist. The shadow contains not only what's morally shameful, but also what's vital. Normal instincts, appropriate reactions, realistic insights, creative impulses. All of it buried. The shadow is composed partly of personal elements and partly of collective archetypal forces. Imagine someone who inherited a brutal temper from their father and exquisite sensitivity from their mother. Two incompatible forces. The developmental task isn't to choose one and bury the other. It's to integrate both. But most people can't hold that tension. They choose. The unchosen quality becomes shadow. The shadow behaves compensatorily. Jung documented a case, a woman who saw herself as saintly, pure, virtuous, above reproach. Every night she dreamed of the filthiest sexual obscenities imaginable. Her unconscious was compensating for what her waking persona denied. Without shadows, Jung wrote, a personality is nothing but a two-dimensional illusion. A well-behaved child. Plastic. The shadow gives you dimensionality, reality, weight. But here's where it gets difficult. To become whole, to individuate, you must consciously confront what you've rejected. And that requires the kind of courage most people never summon. Jung called it great courage, because accepting a quality you've hidden for years, admitting it's yours, feels like a kind of death, the death of who you thought you were. If you refuse, the shadow doesn't disappear. These autonomous complexes, real psychological forces with their own intelligence, strike from behind. They possess you in moments of rage, jealousy, projection. Those times when you're horrified by your own behavior and think, that wasn't me. Yes, it was. And here's what most people miss. Individuation doesn't necessarily lead to isolation. Jung was explicit about this. It leads to a more intense and authentic relationship with the collective. This isn't egoism, it's the opposite. It's becoming real enough to genuinely connect. Now we turn to Nietzsche and the energy required to endure this confrontation. Where Jung gives you the map, Nietzsche gives you the fire, the will. Zarathustra teaches that man is something that must be overcome. Not improved, not healed, overcome. He says explicitly, much in man is still worm. The human being is a rope stretched between animal and Übermensch, a rope over an abyss. What's radical here is Nietzsche's concept of the great contempt. He doesn't mean bitterness or cynicism. He means the moment when even your own happiness, your reason, your carefully cultivated virtues, all of it turns to nausea in your mouth. This contempt is essential. It's the only thing powerful enough to plant the seed of your highest hope. You must look at the person you've become, the accommodations you've made, the lies you've told yourself, the smallness you've mistaken for safety, and feel the full weight of your own mediocrity. Zarathustra says, truly, man is a filthy river, One must be an ocean to receive a filthy river without becoming impure. The ocean is the Übermensch, the self you could become if you had the stomach for it. But here's where Nietzsche becomes dangerous and necessary. He claims that what you call evil in yourself is actually your best strength. Man must become better and worse, Zarathustra declares. The great sin is also the great consolation. The force of your shadow, what you fear most in yourself, is precisely what you need to create something beyond exhausted collective morality. Nietzsche despised what he called the collective demand for conformity, not people themselves, but the force that trains you to be modest, tame, a well-domesticated animal. The morality that mistakes obedience for virtue and sameness for safety. The first step of self-overcoming, refusing to be a good dog. The second, understanding that the descent is necessary. I love those who do not know how to live except by going under, Zarathustra proclaims, for they are those who cross over. Going under, Niedergang, isn't failure. It's the only way forward. Life sacrificing itself for greater power. The great noon when a person celebrates their path in a night as their highest hope. Because only by declining does the new morning become possible. This is shadow work in Nietzschean terms, not therapy, but self-overcoming through confrontation with everything you've denied. So how do these two visions converge? Jung provides the psychological architecture. Nietzsche provides the existential voltage. Jung says, behind your thoughts and feelings, there is a powerful sovereign, an unknown wise one. He called it the self, not the ego, not the I that you mistake for the totality of your being. The self is the center of the entire psyche, conscious and unconscious together. It's what you orbit, like the earth around the sun. Nietzsche, speaking through Zarathustra, said almost the exact same thing. Behind your thoughts and feelings, brother, stands a mighty commander, an unknown sage. He is called self. He dwells in your body. He is your body. The body is the great reason, Nietzsche wrote. What you call spirit, your intellect, your rational mind, is just a toy, a lesser reason. The self laughs at the ego and its proud leaps. Both are pointing to the same truth. There's a deeper intelligence than your ego's intentions, something older, more sovereign. And the journey to your true self is not about strengthening the ego. It's about dissolving the ego's tyranny so the self can emerge. But this dissolution requires what Jung called the transcendent function, the psyche's ability to create new wholes from opposites, and what Nietzsche called the will to power. Let's be precise. The will to power is not about domination. Nietzsche defined it as the creative principle, the force that differentiates, generates, gives. Zarathustra calls this the bestowing virtue, the capacity to overflow, to create, to give from wholeness rather than lack. Jung spoke of the same energy when he described individuation as the union of opposites, ego and shadow, consciousness and the unconscious. The tension between them, held consciously, suffered through, creates transformation. And this is where Jung and Nietzsche become one voice. The goal is not a positive persona, not some polished, acceptable version of yourself. The true self is wilder, more honest, more whole. It contains your instincts, your animal nature, your capacity for both creation and destruction, all integrated, not repressed. So how do you really do this? Before we continue, this is exploration, not therapy. These practices can surface deep material. If trauma emerges or you're in crisis, seek professional guidance. Shadow work done with wisdom is transformative. Done with ego inflation or without support, it can be dangerous. 3 practices, drawn from Jung's clinical work, that bring the shadow into the light. First, work with your dreams, not as random nonsense, but as compensatory messages from the unconscious. Your dreams don't just show you opposites. They compensate for what your conscious life denies. They restore balance. If you're rigidly controlled during the day, your dreams might bring chaos, not as punishment, but as medicine. If you present as endlessly kind, your dreams may feature the anger, selfishness, or power you won't claim in waking life. Jung's method. Interpret dreams on the subjective level. Every figure in the dream is an aspect of you. The criminal, the seducer, the coward. Those aren't other people. They're disowned parts of your own psyche, trying to get your attention. Write them down. Track the patterns. They're mapping your shadow. Second, notice your projections. Whatever triggers disproportionate emotion in you, especially moral outrage or contempt, is almost always a projection of your own disowned shadow. But here's the critical part. The work happens inside your own psyche, not through confronting the external person. Jung warned explicitly, deal with the emotion as a personified force within the vessel of your own personality. Otherwise, you risk what he called black magic, externalizing your inner work onto others. When you feel that charge, turn it inward. Ask, what part of me is this reflecting? This is excruciating. It's also liberating. Every projection you withdraw is a piece of yourself you reclaim. Third, active imagination. When you're seized by a powerful emotion, rage, lust, despair, don't suppress it and don't act it out. Personify it, give it a voice, dialogue with it as if it were a real being. Why are you here? What do you want from me? What will happen if I keep ignoring you? Jung insisted, these autonomous complexes are real psychological forces, not metaphors, real powers within your psyche. Treat them with the seriousness you'd give an actual person. Through this dialogue, held with care and emptied of ego, they begin to transform. Now, the Nietzschean disruption. The question that cuts through all your careful self-justifications. What would you do if you weren't afraid of disapproval? Not what would make you happy, not what would be right. What would you do? What would you create, destroy, become if the collective's judgment meant nothing to you? Zarathustra asks an even more radical question. Can you give yourself your own evil and your own good and hang your will above yourself as a law? Can you be judge and avenger of your own law? This is self-legislation, creating your own values. Not because you're rebelling, but because you've integrated enough of your shadow to know what you actually are. Most people never answer this question. But as Zarathustra says, this is my way. What is yours? For the way does not exist. Here then is what Jung and Nietzsche both understood. The journey to your true self is not about becoming more likable, more successful, more acceptable. It's not about self-improvement in any conventional sense. It's about integration, becoming whole by admitting what you actually are, including everything you've spent your life rejecting. Jung offers the psychological structure for this descent, the shadow, the self, the transcendent function that unites the opposites. He shows you that the unconscious isn't your enemy. It's the compensatory wisdom your conscious life lacks. Nietzsche offers the energy, the will to power as creative force, the great contempt for mediocrity, the courage to go under so you can cross over. He reminds you that this path is not safe, it's not gentle, it's the path of the one who loves their fate, amor fati, even when that fate includes suffering, darkness, and the dissolution of everything you thought you were. The true self is not a persona you consciously construct. It's what remains when all the masks burn away. It's wilder, stranger, more paradoxical than anything you'd consciously design. Jung called it the God within. Nietzsche called it the Übermensch. Both knew this. You cannot reach it by addition, only by subtraction, only by descent. Maybe the journey to your true self isn't about finding something new. It's about turning toward everything in you that you've spent a lifetime running from and discovering that the wound you feared most is exactly what makes you real. New videos drop every Thursday and Sunday. The foundational books and primary sources that shape this exploration are listed in the description below. This video is part of the playlist Philosophy Explained, Stoicism, Existentialism, and Ancient Wisdom. If this resonated with you, there are other reflections worth exploring, not as answers, but as companions for the descent.